packet, Tracy. I just sent that to you.
Okay. Okay, the link is now posted.
We can go ahead and get started.
You are good to
Yes.
go.
Please do.
Okay, so this is the business meeting of the Medical Psychology Advisory Committee, August 26, 2022. Meetings beginning at 12:05. Does everyone want to introduce themselves? Just for audio here. Warren Lowe. Everybody can hear me, I hope.
Yes, sir.
Chris Rochelle.
I'm Glenn Alley.
All right,
Darla Burnett.
okay.
And I'm Vince Collada with the board.
Susie Allen with the board.
Patricia Welton with the board.
I'm Matthew Cook with the board.
Okay, so
Great.
we got everybody. So want to welcome Dr. Darla Burnett to the Medical Psychology Advisory Committee. This will be her first meeting. She was sworn in, actually she was affirmed in before the meeting started. So really glad to have Darla on board. Are we allowed to make any changes to the agenda once it's been publicly posted?
You
Or are
can,
we-
yes, sir, you can,
Okay,
but it requires a majority vote. I mean, a unanimous vote, I apologize, a unanimous vote to add any items to the agenda at this time.
okay,
And once you go into executive session, there can be no more additions.
gotcha. Thanks, Vic. So does anyone have any additions that they'd like to make to the agenda or changes? Glenn, you had mentioned you wanted to add something about LSBEP. Do you still want to do that?
I don't know that it's necessary, but we had some interactions with LSBEP or the psychology board, and I just thought it would be something to update any proceedings that had gone before.
Yeah, I think we can do that rather quickly and just give an update on that.
Okay.
So do you want to make a motion that we add that?
I move that we add the most recent interaction with LSBEP to the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So it will be added. If it's okay, I'd like to skip around a little bit in the agenda. And the reason I want to do that is we have Susie Allen, Dr. Susie Allen with us to talk about the medical psychology rules course. And I don't want her to have to hang around while we go through some of this other stuff. So if that's okay, we'll skip to the rules and law course with Susie. Is that okay with you, Susie? Susie here still?
Is she
Yeah,
willing?
sorry, I was muted. I just needed to unmute myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is fine with me if your fellow advisory committee members want to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, let's not tie you up. If you
Okay.
don't mind, since we have a new member and since it's been a while since we talked about this, give us just a real quick overview of what we're talking about here.
Okay, so first of all, the bigger overview is that for years, physicians had a requirement that they had to take a quote board orientation before their first renewal. I was hired years ago among other reasons to create courses, board orientation and laws and rules courses for pretty much all of our practitioners, because it was felt that it isn't only physicians who should be aware of the rules and laws that they need to understand to operate, safely and correctly. So we have various practitioner groups who have had courses created and that have been being used as a condition of licensure, but what is happening with the board is several things. One, just for consistency's sake, and two, to eliminate, any hitches in time of creation of new licensure efforts and that sort of thing. There was a move by the board in general to make it so that all of our practitioner groups have to take this, a course of this kind upon their first renewal. And I've been working on the med psych course for a while. And so where that is right now is that the first draft of that has been placed for review by Dr. Lowe, and we will be getting the rest of your look at this, both the course and the little quiz that goes along with it. So that's sort of where we are with your particular course. And generally what I do so that we are in agreement with the open meetings laws is that I usually work at first with several people from the committee, but not the whole committee, only because we would have to, any more than one or two people, we would be in violation of the open meetings law to be discussing it. So usually I get a first draft to somebody or perhaps two somebodies on the committee. We look at it, I get some critiques. One of the things I am always looking for from my advisory committee members are scenario-based quiz questions, because I am not a medical psychologist and I don't know exactly what happens when the rubber hits the road, but I'm always looking for scenarios in which someone could inadvertently break a rule or a law, or might be tempted to do so, or perhaps even asked inadvertently to do so by a client. So this is what I need from you all to review the course and review and add to any kind of scenario-based questions. And so, I'd probably work with Warren and perhaps one of you, if I could get an additional volunteer. I started this process with Warren and Dr. Quillen, who unfortunately passed. So this has been in the works. We have a substantive draft for Dr. Lowe to look at. And then we would be having all of you review it. Any discussions of the quiz questions as a group would have to be in executive session, because I don't really want, questions and answers discussed about that in public session. Any questions or comments about this?
Let me just say, Susie, that this was just posted on the cloud share about 2 hours ago. And I didn't see it 2 hours ago. I just saw it about a half hour ago, and I printed it out. And just for all the committee, Jim and I had worked up a number of questions, and we had kind of gotten, I think, to a point that we felt fairly good with it, although we were certainly open to adding other questions. But what I'd like to do is just, since I haven't looked at this in some time, take a quick look at it, get back with Susie, and then get it out to everybody for feedback. Can we do that, Susie? Is that legit that people can go ahead and take a look at it on the cloud share?
Well, unfortunately, because of our open meeting rules, and Patricia Wilton can jump in if she disagrees with what I'm saying, but my understanding is that for the entire group to look at it, that would have to be discussed within a meeting format.
Okay.
Right. The group can look at it. If you want to disseminate it, that's no problem. But you can't have a round robin email discussion about it. You can't have a verbal discussion, in groups of more than two of you together, because three of you is a quorum. So
Okay.
that's the only prohibition there. If you
So if
certainly
it's on-
look at it as individuals.
Okay, so if it's on the cloud share and people look at it, as long as we don't discuss it except in a meeting, that will be.
That's correct. That's exactly.
What about, let's say, they look at it, and somebody says, can individual members send something to Dr. Lowe saying, what about this question? And he could add it and bless it, and then we could, do. I mean, I don't know the extent to this process, or do we need to have I don't know, I know you all are involved in other rules changes and whatever, but I would like to get the first version of this up, since rule changes take a while. I'd like to get the first version up as soon as is feasible for you all. Without counting the new rule changes, because those, we will get those in as soon as the next set of rules passes. But in the meantime, we want to get this up.
I think that would be a good way to do it, Susie. That way the discussion would still be between two members. That is, one member and Dr. Lowe, if there are any questions that they want to submit or discuss. Individual emails to Dr. Lowe, I think, would be two members discussing it and not go outside the boundaries of what
Well,
was just
no,
outlined.
I apologize, but that's really what we call a rolling quorum or a walking quorum. That's really you all having a series of 3 or 4 separate public meetings instead of all getting together to have one public meeting. When I said you could meet in a group of 1 or 2, I meant that if you divide it up and you said, okay, 2 people are going to work on this project, that's less than a quorum. So 2 of you could meet with Susie, or you could meet independently, but you couldn't then circulate outside of the public's view and agree amongst yourselves as a committee on what would ultimately be submitted. So if you stop and think about transparency, if you have all this going on in the background and you're all individually submitting your thoughts and questions to Dr. Lowe, you're doing that outside of public view. And that's not really what the open meetings law contemplates. So it's okay if you want to individually think about these things and come to the next meeting with questions, or if you want to have a little half-hour meeting just solely for the purpose of addressing rule changes and bring your questions to the table and do a quick vote on those things, however you want to do it. But we really can't have all of you independently communicating with Dr. Lowe, even as individuals, because that really is having a meeting without having a meeting.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
So if it's okay, I'm going to ask somebody on the committee to work with me like I was working with Jim, and we'll work with Susie and get things in a what we hope is a semi-final form, and then have a meeting about it. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Susie? I don't want to hold you up.
No, it's fine. I actually probably will stay on a little bit more, because part of my education process is to understand what some of each licensee group, I won't stay on for the whole thing, but sometimes I like to hear what's, for instance, I definitely want to hear about the LABEP, some of these things, because it does end up affecting how I phrase things sometimes in the courses or other questions, quiz questions. Sometimes that does come up. So I may stick around for a little bit, but I appreciate you all listening to what I have to say, and I look forward to getting this done with you. The one thing I also want to mention is that this course will be posted in CE Broker, and any of your people taking it, it will automatically post to their CE Broker transcript. So it's very convenient. It's an instant read.
And so again, just to sort of remind people, new licensees will be given material on the rules and the law to read prior to taking the exam. And they have multiple bites at the apple. They can take it as many times as they need to pass it. Is that right, Susie?
Yeah, I mean, and basically the course is essentially forcing them to read the rules. We sometimes highlight certain important parts, or we might make a note about something, but it's basically they take a pre-test and then they read the material and then they take a post-test. It's called slightly differently, different than that, but that's basically what happens. And they, when they take it, they get free CE or CME. You guys can designate, which one I guess it is CME, but in this case, but the other thing, and you all can discuss this, because the rule is only going to apply to people who are renewing for the first time, that means you have a ton of people out there who probably have never looked at these rules. and had never had such an orientation to how the board works and how the committee works and so forth. So what some of our committees are doing, and Dr. Van can talk more about this, some of them are making this, and you could make this a one-time requirement for the rest, or some of our committee members, committees are changing their rules so that people have to take this laws and rules course every 3 years or every 5 years, just so they remain up to date on what the rules are for their, licensed profession in the state.
I think that's a good idea because things change,
They do.
rules change. And
Dr. Lowe,
yes,
Dr. Lowe,
yes,
anybody who takes the course now or after the rules are changed that has not taken it in their first year after licensing will get credit toward the required number of CMEs that have to be accomplished. It will be free, so they won't have to pay for it. And one of our advisory committees is wanting to make it every year because they think that it's important that their members know these rules, because they get so many calls from their members about what they can and cannot do that they feel it's appropriate to do it every year. Like Susie said, some are going to do it every 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It's your call what you want to do, but it will be available for anybody, anytime, to take it, to make up at least an hour or two of the continuing medical education requirements at no cost for every annual renewal.
that's great. Yeah, I like the idea of repeating it. Maybe every couple of years. We'll discuss that, but I like that idea. And again, just to kind of clarify, all new licensees will take this, but current licensees will take it upon renewal. So everybody will take it.
No. Let me see if I can state it more clearly.
Okay,
Instead of requiring it before licensing and delaying licensing, it's now going to be done after the first license is issued and before the first renewal. Now, for example, in doctors, doctors renew on their birthday month, the last day of their birth month.
right.
If you renew on the last day of your birth month and you get your license in July and your birthday is in August, you'll have to take it before the last day in August, okay? That's what we're going to say, before their first renewal, after getting their initial license. Now, anybody else can take it anytime in the doctor field and get to the CMEs required, and so will you. So if you choose not to make it mandatory, but somebody comes up on their deadline to renewal and says, "Oh, I need to get 1 or 2 hours," they can go to CE Broker, take the course, and get those 2 hours and get that added to their total for their required continuing education for their renewal. Recall now that nobody's going to be renewed until you meet the requirement for the CEs. The computer is going to be programmed to say, "Sorry, we can't renew you at this time because you've not completed your continuing medical education hours."
Gotcha. Okay. That helps.
But just to clarify, the only people who will have this be mandatory for are people who are new licensees upon first renewal. So if you want to make it mandatory in some form for all your members to take it, you're going to have to put that into effect.
Okay. Because I misunderstood that. I thought we had decided that everybody was going to take it prior to renewal. But if it's only for new licensees, personally, I think everybody should take it. That's just me. But we'll hash that out as we get to a more final form of it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So just to get back to the agenda.
I've added the item number 5 to the agenda for everybody to see.
Okay. I guess the public comments. Do we, at this point, allow public comments for people who might be on YouTube?
Yes, we do, and I will check to see right now if we have any. One moment, please, sir. I have no public comment at this time.
Okay. All right, we have an election of committee officers. this becomes interesting because using my higher math skills, which consisted of counting on my fingers and subtraction, I determined that Glenn and I have expired terms. We have served 12 years. Actually, we've served a little more than 12 years. And according to the rule, that is the maximum amount that you can serve, I guess, continuously. So that presents us with a little bit of a dilemma. Now, Glenn and I began service on the MPAC in 2009. The rule that actually spelled out the length of the term was not passed until March 2011. So if that's when that 12 years goes into effect, then actually our terms don't expire until next year. But I'm going to have somebody weigh in on that because that's something I don't know. Technically, we've served on it 13 years. Any thoughts about that, Patricia?
I don't actually have an off-the-cuff response to that. I certainly can look into it as soon as we get off the meeting. Sometimes it depends on how the rule was written or but if the rule is silent as to any grandfathering existing terms, existing members, then I'll have to research what they do with that in general practice. And I don't know that off the top of my head. I'll have to look at it.
And the only rule of thumb that really applies is every member serve until they are replaced.
Okay.
So if we need to replace you, we got to get the process started before you would be off. You have to be replaced.
Yeah, I'll double check that this afternoon as soon as we get off the meeting.
So my question is then, do we hold an election now if two of us may be term limited and could be off the board as soon as Patricia gives us an opinion?
I mean, my suggestion would be just to keep going as you are until we have an answer on that, which won't take very long.
Okay. Well, so we elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, and open to nominations from anyone. You can self-nominate if you'd like.
So Warren, given what was just said, I would move that we postpone the elections until we get an opinion. That way, we still function in the same capacity we're functioning now. Because we don't have a president, you would move to the position of heading the MPAC, and everything else would stay the same. We can postpone the election until we get an opinion.
Yeah, I think that's probably advisable, just because even though the members would have to stay on until we get new appointees, it probably would be preferable not to have them be officers. So
Right.
yeah, if you could just wait to one more meeting till we can determine if what the outcome of that's going to be. I think that'd be more efficient in any event.
Okay, good, thanks. So we have the approval of the minutes of the last meeting of March 2021, and those, you should have copies of those. Those were posted on the CloudServe. Does anybody have any changes they want to make or a motion to approve?
So Dr. Lowe, if you noticed, the minutes that I included on the agenda were the March 16th minutes. Your September minutes were actually approved at the March meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so just.
I would move to approve subject to any corrections that may be made.
Do we have a second?
I second. Dr. Rochelle seconds.
Okay. Any discussion about the minutes? All in favor to approve?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, under new business, we talked about the laws course with Dr. Allen. Recommendation of medical marijuana by medical psychologists. As you know, there was legislation passed in the most recent legislative session that approved psychologists, medical psychologists, to recommend medical marijuana. Now, my understanding is that the pharmacy board will have to adopt some rules about that. And will the medical board also adopt some rules about that, Van?
We would treat it like any other controlled substance in a category 2 or class 2 controlled substance like we do for the docs. We do not get involved in the in the regulation unless the statute requires us to. And my understanding was the statute did not require us to, and I'll verify that, but it's my understanding that the statute really was involved if the pharmacy board. We are out of the medical marijuana regulation business as far as I'm concerned.
I noticed something on the website, the LSBME website today, Van, and I didn't have a chance to read it, but there's some recommendation about medical marijuana, or I don't remember the exact title of it, but there's a something on the website for providers about that. You know what I'm talking about?
I think you're talking about the reporting of complications or adverse reactions to medical marijuana. That's a separate statute that we are complying with, and it was never changed. And so that reporting is available to people who choose to use it by law. But in terms of regulating the prescribing psychologists, it would only be something that would be improper prescribing of a category 2 drug. Now, do you all normally prescribe category 2 drugs?
Yes.
Yes, non-narcotic.
Right. So again, all category 2s are things like opioids and things like that. So the key here would be if they inappropriately prescribe medical marijuana, it would be like if they inappropriately prescribed an opioid or something like that.
Okay.
Because the state law considers medical marijuana a class 2 narcotic. And so we would abide by that state law.
Okay.
And again, it would either come to us by a complaint by the pharmacy board about improper prescribing, or it would come to us by a complaint by a patient. Absent that, we don't get involved.
Gotcha. Okay, we need to replace our physician member. Jim Blackburn has been the psychiatrist that's been on the committee for a while. Jim retired from active practice about a year and a half to 2 years ago. He's maintained his medical license, but he's not actively practicing. But Jim has some health problems, and he asked to be replaced on the committee. And so that's something that we'll also need to do fairly quickly. And my question was, does anyone on the committee have any candidate that they might suggest as a physician psychiatrist member of the committee?
I can check and ask at the Community Mental Health Center where I work. There are some psychiatrists who may be amenable to doing that. I can ask and find out, but by all means, we need to also ask elsewhere.
Yeah.
And this is the only requirement I'm highlighting in blue right here for you to see that I am aware of in the law, where most of your stuff is defined. So you might want to just take a quick look at that. It's for you to see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they would have to come through the State Medical Society. And it's recommended by the Louisiana Psychiatric Medical Association and the Academy of Medical Psychologists. So those individuals would recommend to the LSMS. Now, let me explain this to you so you'll understand clearly. The LSMS will not nominate anybody who is not a member of the LSMS. So again, you need to be aware that you have to fulfill all of those requirements to get those names up.
The way it worked practically last time, Van, was that the committee, our committee came up with 2 or 3 names. We submitted those to
Board.
the State Medical Society and the Psychiatric Medical Association. And they actually just approved the names that we submitted. And from
Good.
those names, we chose one person.
Good. That's fine. Just send them to us when you get them, and I'll get them approved at the next board meeting. If y'all have a selection item, if you want to make some suggestions, or if you want to review them, we can, before we send it to the board, we can do that too.
Okay. So if anybody on the committee has any names, and certainly check it out with the individual, make sure they're a member of the State Medical Society. Then send those names to me so we can get a little 2 or 3 names to submit to Van. Okay, next is the LSBP situation. You want to talk about that, Glenn?
Sure. As just a little background, LSBEP had contacted us with some concerns that they had about medical psychologists supervising potential licensees with LSBEP. Their concern was that as supervisor, we are not regulated by LSBEP, and they thought it would be difficult to govern those potential new licensees if they could not govern the supervisor of that potential licensee. Their interpretation of the statutes and the laws as they are currently, their interpretation was that if a medical psychologist was going to supervise a potential psychology licensee, that medical psychologist had to hold dual licensure with LSBME and LSBEP. Our interpretation was not the same. We have held the same interpretation as was the interpretation in 2009, that once a person is licensed by LSBME, they are able to discontinue their license with LSBEP and continue to function in the same way that psychologists do throughout the state. Because the authority given by statute is that we are able to practice psychology and able to practice as other psychologists do in the state. We also had an opinion from the Attorney General back in around the same period, 2009, 2010, that agreed with our opinion. So that in negotiations with the board of LSBEP, negotiations went back and forth for a while. We held a couple of joint meetings with them. Dr. Collada was in on a couple of those meetings. And eventually what occurred was the LSBEP backed off of their position and said that we would allow things to go on as they had been going on since 2009, 2010. However, we were still somewhat concerned that when the LSBEP felt that they wanted to change their mind, they could. So we found a vehicle, House Bill 314, that was working its way through the legislature, which was an omnibus bill that made technical corrections to a number of licensing laws, dentistry, nurses, et cetera, including the psychology board and the regulation of psychologists. At that time, as it was working its way through the legislature, we took the opportunity to not only monitor it, But we made an amendment to that legislation that was working its way. Once it got to the Senate and was to be debated on the Senate floor, we made an amendment on the Senate floor, which was approved by the Senate and sent to the House for concurrence and approved by the House and signed by the governor into Act 271. Okay. That amendment simply added medical psychologists. The pertinent section is on page 27 of Act 271, paragraph, 2365, section C. And it says, the following persons may engage in the activities defined as a practice of psychology if they do not represent themselves by any title which incorporates the word psychologist, and they perform their activities under the supervision and functional authority of a psychologist licensed in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. We added, or a medical psychologist licensed by the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners, subject to applicable rules promulgated by the board. So we are able to function as a psychologist, including supervising potential psychology licensees, but it'll still be subject to the rules of the LSBEP. That supervision will still be subject to the rules of LSBEP. So it's a minor addition, but that minor addition gives us in statute the authority that we did not have in statute before, but was just interpreted as being in that statute before. So that has been the gist of it. The board has recognized, LSBEP has recognized that medical psychologists may supervise potential psychology licensees. And now this part in statute also recognizes that we have the ability to supervise potential licensees.
And which section was that? I was pulling up. I want to get it so I can add it to my files on your bill.
It's on page 27 of 67.
Gotcha.
Okay, paragraph 20, well, it's at line 12, it says scope of chapter.
Right.
Okay, down to section C.
Gotcha.
You'll see it at section C.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Quite welcome. So any questions about any of that? That's it, Warren.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Okay, I think we're ready to go into executive session. Van, there's somebody in this group of applicants who you had an issue with. There was something that had come up.
And you had recused yourself from previous votes.
Yeah, I'm gonna recuse myself again. So when you get to that name, I'm gonna disappear.
Okay, I want to ask. This is difficult because you don't want to get involved in it, but there's someone else among the applicants who was remanded by the board, and there is a letter from our form from Dr. Cresswell.
Wait, stop. We probably ought to have a motion to go into executive session. Okay. Then we're going to turn off the feed or take you all out of the public arena, go into a private arena so that you can come back while the public waits.
Gotcha.
So let me just double check to make sure that we don't have any public comment. No public comment. So at this point, what I would tell you to do is have a motion to go into executive session. Let Jacinta take a minute to bring us into an executive session room where nobody else can see what we're doing. And then when you go back into public session to take all your votes, the public can see you do it. Am I right, Ms. Wilton?
I would move that.
Yes, that's correct.
Into executive session.
Okay, second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll wait for Jacinta to give us the word that we're in executive session.
All right, it should be there in just a second.
Jacinta, just a quick question here. Are you going to do the minutes of this meeting or do you want me to do them?
Yes, sir, I got you for this one.
You are so fantastic. Thank you very much.
I haven't got a notice to rejoin. I haven't seen anything come up.
No, just cancel yours
Gotcha.
Okay, back to the open session. So let's get a motion on each of the applicants. Applicant number one, can I get a motion on?
I would move to defer pending further explanation of CME submission.
Second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion on applicant number two.
I would recommend that we approve application number 2 and forward to the board for further processing.
And this is for advanced practice.
Correct.
All right, all in favor? Second, got a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Applicant number 3.
I would move to defer on application number 3 pending updated attestation form.
And clarification from Dr. Cresswell.
Correct.
Okay. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Applicant number 4.
I would move approval of application number 4 and forwarding to LSBME for further processing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second, okay, all in favor.
Aye.
All right, and applicant number 5.
Applicant number 5, I would also move for recommendation and forwarding to LSBME for further processing.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And last applicant number 6.
Number 6, I would move for approval and forwarding to LSBME for further processing.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Uh, Quick question about that, Patricia. Can we do those in groups? Could we have said applicants 4, 5, and 6 are approved for recommendation to the board, or do we have to do them individually?
When you have something as simple as that and it's an approval, you could have done those in groups. When you have specific requirements that you want to do those individually.
Okay, thanks.
You're
Try to
welcome.
remember that for next time. Okay, let's see what's next on the agenda. Under new business. Consultation on licensure matters. I'm not sure what that is. That wasn't something that I put on the agenda.
That's what you just did. And then what's on the agenda after that is just attorney advice that we put on all of our advisory committee agendas, just in case you need attorney advice.
Yeah, and I had actually put that on the agenda, the second one that I submitted, because we have a new member on the committee, and it doesn't hurt for all of us to kind of be reminded. And that's already come up in today's session about communication among committee members. Anytime there's a quorum, we're essentially acting as a committee. So we have to be very careful about that. Are there other things that we need to be aware of, Patricia, just in our day-to-day dealings with each other or the board?
We have a little committee orientation that we can do offline with Ms. Darla, and or we can do it as a refresher for everybody at a subsequent meeting. It's not necessarily something we would do in open session.
Okay.
I do have a question. In the documents that were sent to us on page 48 of 49, there was a letter from Dr. Vincent, and I wasn't sure if we needed to bring anything up.
The Zentner letter?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was something. It just says we'll present to advisory committee at their next meeting.
Okay, I'll touch base with you about this. This is a situation, we all have a rule that says that the psychologist cannot employ the physician that's the consulting psychiatrist. This fellow presented me a situation where the Dr. Zentner works for Family Solutions Counseling Center. He does not own Family Solutions Counseling Center. It's owned by Shelby Holdings Company and managed by Practice Management Solutions Shelby Holdings Company. And it's owned by Scott and Brianne Shelby. Dr. Richard Sylvester is the MP and is employed by the medical psychologist that is assigned to support patients in the LaSalle Correctional Center for that corporation. He's a W-2 employee and has no ownership of Family Solutions Counseling Center. So they were concerned, and I said, put it together because I'm not going to make that answer until we first run by you guys. And if there's any question, we present it to the board. But the real question is here, does this gentleman, in your opinion, have a relationship that would impede the proper relationship between an MP and a consulting psychiatrist? They both work for a corporation owned by another psychologist.
Well, the two principals do not have that relationship, right? Employer, employee.
The two principals are Scott and Brianne Shelby.
No, I mean, the principals involved in this matter here.
Yeah, they're neither one of them are owners.
Okay. And neither one of them employ each other.
The way I understand it, Dr. Zentner is employed as a 1099 independent contractor and has no ownership with Family Solutions Practice Management. Sylvester is employed as a W-2 employee of the Family Solutions Counseling Center.
Right.
One is a consultant to the big corporation. The other is a W-2 employee of the corporation.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the matter of concern is between the 1099 person and the W-2.
Right.
Not the entity.
Right.
And the 1099 person. So I don't see any problem with it.
I don't see a problem with it.
Good enough. That's all I wanted to know, and I'll present it to the board, make sure they're comfortable with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And while I got you on the phone, are you listening? You all will be getting what we call an Hotel H number that will allow you to do all of your required public servant training online through the Louisiana Employment webpage. We call it LEO, L-E-O. And that will allow you to do your ethics training and everything else you need to do. Jacinta will be sending you those hopefully in the next 4 weeks or so. And you can sign on to LEO and get that done without having to worry about taking any special courses. And you'll have your requirement stated for you. The most important one is ethics, but you're also going to have to take one about sexual harassment. So
Okay.
we just want to tell you about that. You'll be getting that. That's what that H number will be about.
Now,
Okay.
for some of us, Van, I'm contracted with the state, and we're required to take those as well.
So you have a P number. You will not need an H number.
Okay.
You just tell us what your P number is,
Okay.
so that we can look, so that HR people can put together your P number and make sure you do all your required for us as well.
Okay. Great.
So
Thanks.
Thank you for calling it to my attention. I forgot to say that if you work with the state already, you got a P number, you don't need an H number.
Van, I'm just still a little bit confused about getting information about applicants. Are we not really supposed to communicate with the people that handle the applications and review them?
Well, I think that if you want to rigidly prescribe a course of action. I think the key that you might do for us is say, what courses are going to be recognized so that we can screen these in advance and say, you don't have the recognized courses. If you want to do that yourselves, like you've been doing it, that's fine. But the key here is to establish and maybe make it less burdensome on you all. As far as talking to the licensing people, that's not an issue, but is it going to be productive of use of your time? And how do you want to, we make sure it gets done if that's what you want to do. But again, I think our job is to collect the data and present it to you.
Right.
And if you specify the type of data, we'll collect exactly that type of data. And that way you don't have to spend a lot of time reviewing it. So
I was
for
actually
example,
thinking about,
the use of course.
yeah, I was actually just thinking about something much simpler. I've been trying to determine how many applicants we have in waiting, and I haven't been able to get that number. And
I can get that number for you. I'm sorry, I did not know you needed it, but I will get that number for you and I will send it to you in the next 48 to 72 hours.
Well, I'm just thinking about for the future, if I, in the past, Van, I would call Ms. James and say, Ms. James, how many applicants do we have waiting, to sort of give us an idea of when we needed to schedule a meeting. But I was kind of under the impression that I wasn't supposed to go through her anymore.
No, but we'll get you. What we can do is there's a number of issues about waiting, and I will tell you what they are. Let's say Dr. Jones puts in an application to become an MP. Dr. Jones fills out everything, but doesn't put his credit card number in and doesn't finalize the application. We do not consider that in waiting. We just consider that an incomplete application.
Sure.
Okay, Dr. Jones finalizes, pays his money. We now start the clock ticking. We send them information. We know that they have a portal. They have an email address. We send them information. You required to provide such and such, so and so, and such and such. They don't do it. We may send it again, but ultimately, we believe that the burden is on the applicant. Okay, and so if we don't get it, usually at about 6 months, they're closing them out because they have not provided the information. We send them an email saying, we've not heard from you in 6 months. You've not provided any information. We're closing your application. You can reapply anytime you want. Now, I will get you the details and I can actually make it part of every one of your presentations if you like. I mean, every one of your meetings, we can do this and I can just show you who's waiting and that kind of, and the number of people who are waiting. I will not share the names unless you really want to, but the number of people who are waiting and that kind of thing, we can give you that information on a regular basis.
That would be helpful because I hate for people to have to wait unnecessarily because we don't know they're there. And
again, what it might be, what you might want to do is among yourselves decide, look, do we want to have a meeting every quarter, every 6 months, whatever it is, and we can always schedule those. And then if there's an urgent need for something, like, you want to finalize this issue about the law and rules course, you might want to have a meeting sooner than every quarter.
Yeah.
But again, I think the good news is with the state, Matthew's got his hand up. Maybe he might want to comment on the waiting.
Currently, let's see, we are moving forward with the 4. There's going to be 3 active applications after that. There's going to be Perez and then the 2 that were deferred.
Okay, and that's all. Okay, good. Good.
So the good news is we can set these meetings. Nobody has to drive to New Orleans. We can do them at your convenience, Friday afternoon, Saturday mornings. The only thing is if somebody beats you to the day, we don't generally have 2 meetings at the same time, okay? I am pleased to tell you that the technology we've brought to bear for advisory committee meetings has gotten a lot of advisory committee meetings to meet much more often and get much more active. And that's what we really need because they accuse us of not doing anything. But if we set up everybody and there is no quorum, then there's no meeting. This way we get better guarantees of quorum, better participation, and that's, I think, is happening now.
So make it a lot easier for us to get a psychiatrist member too.
Yes, I
that
do
they
believe
it
so.
by Zoom. So that was a real boon to have that legislation passed.
Yes, it was.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Does anybody have anything else?
Actually, I don't think you need a motion to adjourn. We just adjourn. But if we need one, so moved.
All right, we'll adjourn. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
y'all. Thanks
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate
Appreciate it.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Jacinta.
And oh, Patricia, you're going to be getting me something about the
You're welcome.
terms of the participation on the MPAC. Maybe she's
Yes.
already gone.
logged off.
We'll get it to you.
Okay, thank
Thank you
you.
much.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Carla.